Margot, Carson, show me the money. And January, is typically a mix of Christmas movies in their fourth or fifth weeks, starting to run out of steam, medium budget to low budget movies that the studios don't know what to do with, so they just dump them in January with minimal marketing campaigns and cross their fingers for a surprise hit. And that's what we're seeing this week at the box office. We got Flight Risk somehow coming in at number one, Joe. Mel Gibson's Flight Risk, considering it only has a $25 million budget and it got terrible reviews, Lionsgate's got to be pretty happy with a $12 million opening for Flight Risk in the opening weekend. At number two this week was Mufasa the Lion King, the seventh biggest movie of 2024, continuing to rake in the cash. At number three, a movie that we haven't seen yet, but I really want to see, One of Them Days, which has been a nice little January sleeper hit for Sony, is up to $25 million total gross on a $14 million budget.
That's great. And that's a comedy.
A throwback, straight-up comedy with Keke Palmer and SZA. I really want to see this movie. We got to check out One of Them Days. At 4 and 5, Sonic 3 and Moana, a couple other holdovers from 2024 that are still raking. At 6, Presence, the other big new release of the week, which we'll be reviewing next week on next week's show. Soderbergh's sort of unconventional ghost story. It only cost $2 million, so I'm sure Neon is satisfied to open at $3.4 million. But I also got to think this is a somewhat disappointing opening. The per theater average was not great for Presence. Way less than Flight Risk, and considering it had a good horror trailer with like a good kind of like central premise, the camera is the ghost. You got to think Neon was hoping for a slightly stronger opening than $3.4 million. I can't wait to see Presence, but not the strongest opening, but obviously not a disaster. There's not really a potential disaster at all when your movie only costs $2 million. Props to Soderbergh on that budget, baby. Wolfman is at 7. Big drop off in its second week because of the bad reviews, probably. It's up to just $17.8 million total on a $25 million budget. Not great.
That's awful.
That's not good.
Is that worldwide?
That's worldwide.
Dang.
Yeah, it's not really doing that great. A Complete Unknown at 8. Okay, I guess Timmy was on SNL and people wanted to celebrate that, so Complete Unknown bringing in some money at 8. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, which we are reviewing this week in its third week, is up to $40.5 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. Currently the biggest movie of the year, but it's going to have to keep up that momentum to get to profit because it was a $40 million budget. So it's got to be about double where it's at now to see profit. But I think it'll get there. And these Den of Thieves movies, as we'll talk about, crush on streaming. They crush on rentals. So it'll get there. It'll see profit. And then they decided to push, coming off of the Oscar nominations, they decided to push The Brutalist into a sort of semi-wide release this week, which is a risky strategy despite the awards buzz because it's a 3-hour plus movie with an intermission and kind of a, not maybe the most sort of popcorn movie premise ever. And the results were, predictable. They were not great.
Pretty good, though, Brett.
The per theater, though, is
for what you just said, like, all things considered, getting that Golden Globes win, getting that Oscar nom, expanding their release to an additional 780 theaters, adding an almost $3 million more to that till. I think it's a really tough sell in that theatrical distribution space and probably in the POV space like you're getting at. But A24 is making it work, and they might make it work all the way to a Best Picture win.
They might, but look at that. Like the per theater is like the same as Mufasa in its like 8th week. It's like it's or not 8th. It's 4th or 5th week. But I don't know. You expect like these sort of art house movies to do really well per theater because they don't have wide appeal, but they have very sort of strong niche appeal. I don't know. I mean, look, it's not terrible, but it's also not like a knockout. Kind of wide release for The Brutalist.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So, look, that's the box office for this weekend. The thing I want to sort of highlight, because there's never too much to learn from the January box office. It's the month of odds and ends. But there is an interesting trend developing so far this year, Joe, which is that Lionsgate now has 2 number 1 openings already this year. They had Den of Thieves 2 Pantera a couple weeks ago, and then they had Flight Risk this week. So Lionsgate As we know, they had one of the worst years for a movie studio in Hollywood history in 2024 last year. In total, the movies they distributed in 2024 lost somewhere north of $600 million, and their total gross was down 57% from 2023. But here they are with a strong start in January 2025, 2 number ones already. So my question for you, Joe, is, and I have what are going to be their big tent poles for this year. My question for you is, will this actually be a turnaround year for Lionsgate? Or when everything comes out, is it just going to be more misery and heartache for the largest of the mini majors? What do you think, Joe? What does 2025 look like for our friends over at Lionsgate?
This is definitely a turnaround year for Lionsgate. I'm not saying they're going to make back their $600 million they lost last year, but they don't need to. They just need to improve that balance sheet, and I'm looking down the pipeline at what they have cooking, and I think they're playing it well. They're bringing in good directors. By good, I mean popular. And they have some IP in their pipeline that they are juicing wisely. I think they have some opportunities for victory here. Additionally, they are amicably splitting from Starz. They're still keeping their incredibly lucrative theatrical to Starz pipeline open. Lionsgate movies do gangbusters on Starz, and Starz is going to pay a lot of money to continue having those premiere very quickly after theatrical release on Starz in a limited window. So I think that's important for righting the ship, is kind of getting rid of that television baggage and focusing up on your studio efforts. And Brett, I know you want to run through the catalog of what's coming up.
Yeah, Joe.
And I think that you see the catalog a little differently than I do.
I do. I'm afraid, and I don't wish ill on anyone, but I'm afraid this is going to be another bad year for Lionsgate. Not as bad as last year. That would almost be impossible, but another bad year, because I'm looking at their tentpole releases for this year, and I only see one sure thing on here, Joe, which is Saw 11. They're going to lean on that back catalog IP. They're going to do Saw 11 in September. Saw 10 did $125 million on a $13 million budget. The Saw movies are just easy money in the bank. But that's the only sure thing I see on here. Everything else is risky, bordering on disastrous. We have Ballerina, which is a John Wick spinoff with Ana de Armas, coming out in June, coming out in summer. Now, luckily, it doesn't seem to have much competition the weekend it comes out. Just something called Dirty Dancing 2, which doesn't have a poster or a trailer yet.
All right, well, that could spell trouble, actually. Never mind.
But I saw a trailer for this Ballerina movie when I was watching Flight Risk this weekend, and the trailer is not great. It's just very generic. There's nothing about it that's really going to move butts. And it's the classic thing where it's people go to John Wick movies to see John Wick. I don't know if the spinoff is gonna work, and that's nothing against Ana de Armas. She clearly in the trailer went through the whole John Wick boot camp. She's holding a gun in an interesting way, and you're oh, I guess that's how assassins hold guns.
I guess she is John Wick.
Yeah, I guess she is John Wick. So nothing against Ana de Armas. She looks like she's doing her thing, but I just don't know if people are going to come out for the spinoff of the John Wick universe.
Gentle pushback?
Yes, please.
They've been working. Look, the John Wick is a huge IP hit. They've made 4 movies. I'm sure they're going to make 5. They have the TV spinoff. It didn't go well, but they are interested in expanding this IP, and now they have Ballerina. This kind of IP derivative spinoff-y thing has worked. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, it worked. It's working for Lionsgate's other tentpole franchise, The Hunger Games, with their spins off with much maligned but loved on this podcast, Rachel Zegler. And I just think that there's an opportunity. Look, how about this? You're right that people, it's just it's not John Wick. It's a woman doing it. Who cares if she's the world's most beautiful woman, international superstar, Ana de Armas kicking butt? People are going to be weird about it. But I see a $40-45 million opening weekend here where nobody's losing their fucking.
I don't know.
Where nobody's
opening weekend? I thought you meant total. 40-45 opening weekend?
Like a hit, like a $40 million weekend.
No way. Here's an idea, Lionsgate. Jane Wick. Call it Jane Wick.
No way.
No one knows
you
what
stink.
Ballerina is. They're not going to come out for. Why would
that's
you
why.
hide,
That's
why would you
people
obscure
know.
the selling point?
You
You're
are
obscuring
underselling
the
IPs.
I don't think people are even going to know it's a John Wick movie. And like you said,
Lionsgate.
They already tried a TV spinoff and it did not go well.
What? I think. Look, they have to do a John Wick spinoff. They're going.
They could just do another John Wick.
They're going Ballerina. They will do another John Wick next year, but you have to fill your other years with some bullshit, like in Star Wars, and you have to keep it constantly going. I'm just saying, Lionsgate. I see you.
I predict
get
a bomb.
I get it. I get it.
And speaking of bombs, Then in October they have this Michael Jackson biopic coming out, which has just been a really rough production process. They already delayed it to October because there were some legal issues. Apparently, they had a main character in Act 3 of the movie they were not legally allowed to put in the movie, and I don't know how they didn't know that, but now they have to reshoot Act 3 and I guess reconfigure what Act 3 is going to be.
Michael Jackson, King of Pop. I wouldn't be worried about putting a movie
I don't know if people
about
were like
Michael
dying
Jackson.
for a Michael Jackson biopic right now anyway, and now they have all these production issues. That's going to create budget issues. That means they got to make more money to see profit. This thing is a mess right now. I don't have a whole lot of hope in that. They're doing an Aziz Ansari movie in October, not the one that Bill Murray
bringing in
up.
auteur talent.
They're doing Now You See Me 3 in November. Okay.
Stop.
I know you're excited
even
that.
you will agree, like, they're gonna make a little tiny bit of money on that.
Well, but how much money are they gonna have to make? I mean, these, like we saw last year, like they're Borderlands, The Crow, like these movies have budgets. They have big budgets. They have to make a lot of money on these movies, and they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna get there.
I know, but the Now You See Me movies have made money in theaters. I'm saying, like, you got to work with what you got, and they're looking down the line trying to solve things, and they said, let's do it. Let's run it back with Now You See Me. Let's get the crew back together.
Joe,
Eisenberg.
there's something, Joe. This is not looking good. There's something called
Let's get
The
Eisenberg.
Housemaid, a Paul Feig psychological thriller with Sydney Sweeney that has a release date of Christmas.
Nosferatu performed well on Christmas this year. The Paul Feig thriller
yes,
with
exactly.
Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, A Perfect Something, whatever that movie was called, that did pretty good-ish.
People want to see Mufasa and Sonic 3 and Nosferatu on Christmas. They want to see big Christmas movies that they can take the family to. They're not coming out to the Paul Feig psychological thriller with Sydney
Immaculate
Sweeney.
did excellently, and it's Christmas counter programming from wise Lionsgate.
Joe is just joking around because
Wise
Immaculate did
Lionsgate.
very well on a tiny budget. It made like $10 million opening weekend. Okay,
Wise.
now their best bet probably at another sure thing this year would have been Strangers Chapter 2, because last year Strangers Chapter 1 was their second most profitable movie on only an $8 million budget. It outgrossed all the like big budget movies they tried to put out. But we don't know if Strangers Chapter 2 is coming out this year. I saw a trailer for it this weekend, but it was a very like teasery trailer that was just like one scene from the movie.
I saw it. Mm-hmm.
And then Rennie Harlan is being like a little mysterious about if this movie is like done or if it's got a release date. The release date right now is just 2025. So this could be another sure thing for them, but who even knows if it comes out this year? And we're not getting another Hunger Games movie, their other big IP, until 2026. And at that point, they might be sold to some international conglomerate and sold for parts. Who knows? I'm predicting another bad year for Lionsgate. Guys, come on. We got to get it together over there.
This is the year they readjust. Maybe it doesn't go perfectly, but they're on the right path.